I'm Kelsey Grammer, and you're watching Deadline.
Can I help you?
Freddie! Surprise!
Dad, you're at my door. Unannounced.
No, there's a shorter way to say that. Surprise! I'm in town for a guest lecture. I wanted to say hello.
Oh, great. Hello. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I'd love to come in. So, your place is so... Damn, when I started that sentence, I thought I'd think of something.
Yeah, sorry, the Picasso's getting reframed and the whole second floor's in the shop.
You know, you have your mother's sense of humor, Frederick. No, it's charming. It reminds me of the sort of place one would wrestle a cartoon rat for a crust of bread.
There it is. Your subtle reminder I'd make more money if I wasn't just a firefighter.
No, I admire what you do. It's a noble profession. It's just that you did so well in your psych classes at Harvard.
Right, but I wanted to do something important.
What I do is important. It's at least as important as what you do.
Okay, sure. Let's find someone who has low self-esteem and is also on fire and see which one of us they run to first.
There's that mother of yours again.
Welcome to the Actor's Side. Everybody knows Kelsey Grammer, and boy, you have set records for the longest period of time playing one single character. I didn't realize that. Are you tied with Jim Arnez on Gunsmoke?
Right.
Which is pretty amazing. This is Kelsey Grammer. Hi.
Thanks.
Welcome
Good
to
see
the
you, man.
Actor's Side.
Yeah, actually, I think it's Mariska Hargitay, I think, has now eclipsed both of us.
Ah.
Yeah, she's been on that show for a long time. I'm proud to say I'm back in the barrel, and maybe I'm going to, catch up to her again.
See, you're going to jump ahead again.
Yeah.
This is a contest that's not quite over. It's pretty amazing, though, when you think about it. Now you've brought Frasier back, obviously. It's a success all over again. You're going into the second season, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's a whole new Frasier, but it's such a great character. You just couldn't stay away, could you?
Well, you know what? The funny thing about Frasier is he didn't disappear. He went on to another life, and that's what we always constructed in our minds. In my mind, at least, I always thought, well, he's off in some place somewhere, in the zeitgeist or in the whatever that would be, the Ethereum, and he is living a life and growing and changing and becoming a richer, wiser man. And that might be interesting to have another look inside his world.
Yeah.
So it came out that way.
There's so much to Frasier,
Yeah.
so there's so much to explore. I think you find now. At Frasier's now, what, 68 or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, and back
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah, back to Boston, and you're not trying to recreate what we saw before. That's interesting.
No.
Bringing back everything. Was there ever a thought you were going to have the original cast come back to?
Well, I originally wanted to bring the whole legacy cast back, but it didn't work out. But also, the idea was always to be that they'd all grown. We'd all changed, gone on to their own lives, something somewhere else. Everyone was somewhere else.
Right.
And of course, the thing that was the linchpin was that John Mahoney had died.
Yeah.
And that so Martin then had to be dealt with, and that would be what would launch the next phase, the act 3 or 4.
Yeah.
What you want to call it.
That's so nice because you have such a tribute to John Mahoney
Yeah.
here, even in the naming of Mahoney's and all of that.
Yeah, and the baby's name is John.
And the baby's name and everything. That was a great relationship. I mean, maybe even for you personally in playing that, and, having that father.
Yeah. When John died, I got a call from one of the press people I work with who said, people are upset you haven't posted something. Oh, well, I don't post my grief. I mean, I don't do that.
Yeah.
But he said, can you put something on? And I just said, he was my father. That was a real true statement in a lot of ways because he was my practice father, the one I knew. I mean, I didn't really know my dad, and he died when I was fairly young. But even before that, I barely knew him. And so John was my functional father. David Hyde Pierce was my functional brother. I got to explore the relationship a man might have with his father as a grown man. I got to explore the relationship I might have with a full-grown brother, with David, and it was a luxury, I always thought, and actually sort of a family that replaced the one I might have had. Wow. It was great. So I got to learn some lessons that maybe I wouldn't have known otherwise.
That's a great thing about being an actor, too, that you can do that, which is great about that profession. Did you have a dog? 2?
Well, I had several dogs.
Oh, okay.
Kelsey had a lot of dogs.
Okay.
In fact, at one point there were 8 dogs in my house.
Oh my gosh.
And 7 cats. So then I moved more to coyote country. The cats all went. I was like, oh, for Pete's sakes! I tried to tell them. I said, you've got to move inside the house. You have to deal with this litter box thing because you can't live like we lived in the valley anymore.
Right.
And they were gone in about 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it just broke my heart.
Cats are impossible. I have 2, Thelma and Louise, and it's very
Well, you named them properly.
Yeah. Everyone loved Eddie.
Yeah.
Everyone loved Eddie. You know, that was it's just.
Well, he was lovable. He was a remarkable dog for, a trained dog. But,
Yeah. So now that Frasier's back in Boston and this whole new life with these wonderful characters, and Nicholas,
Nicholas Lyndhurst.
he is so perfect in this.
He's wonderful. We met on stage 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now. He was a delight. The minute we met, we fell in love, and we just became fast friends. I would venture to say we may very well be. I mean, I always hate it when somebody says this, but he might actually be my best friend.
Wow.
So it's pretty wild, but it always seemed like he would have to be on the show.
Yeah.
And we were discussing the reboot at that point. About a year later, I said to him, I said, would you be interested in maybe being on the new Frasier? And he said, you've spoken words I've dreamed of hearing. So he's a wonderful guy.
Do you like that format of doing the comedy series in front of the audience and that way rather than just single camera?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've grown accustomed to both. I mean, I like theater. Probably that's my #1 favorite. But then the perfect mix is multiple camera, sitcom style shooting with a live audience.
Yeah.
Without the live audience, it seems sort of silly. We tried to do some stuff during the lockdown with a very limited audience, and everybody was wearing shields and stuff. It just was painful.
How do you get the laughs there?
There was no joy in it.
Yeah.
And, so that was a very hard lift. But this was great. We could bring the folks back in, and it was really, really wonderful. And they give you everything, honestly. If you don't know where a joke is, the audience will tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
This is really the Kelsey Grammer production, from behind the scenes to in front. I mean, you are the guy here. You directed like over 30.
I did. I think 33.
30, yeah. And then you've done several of these.
Couple of these,
too.
4 of these, yeah.
And producer as well, and so involved. So do you like that hands-on kind of thing? Is that necessary, in other words?
Well, the only person that's looking out for me as well as I am is, well, there's nobody. There's just me. So, I mean, I'm in it with my whole heart, with everything I can give. And actually, my friend and sort of partner in crime, Tom Russo, mentioned years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, said, "What about a Frasier spinoff?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then it just started to gain steam when the Roseanne show did so well, when she came back, and there was a kind of a popular move to bring back some other shows. I don't know how inspired that was or even successful that was, but I thought if we're going to do it, we have to make sure he's responsible and moving and having had evolved and was in a different position. And what was funny was when David Hyde Pierce basically made it clear he really didn't feel like playing Niles anymore.
Right.
That became the launching pad for Boston, to go back to Boston.
That
where,
freed you up.
Absolutely. Frasier has unfinished business there.
Yeah.
And that made it really, really interesting. Suddenly there was a whole bunch of stuff going on in my mind that will fulfill all the dreams he had when he was a young man that he didn't quite live up to. And there are relationships there that he has to kind of get some closure on still, like Diane and maybe some folks from the bar, but certainly Lilith, who was back on the show this year.
Yeah.
And his son, which is Frederick, who they had a little. We've sort of fictionalized it and built this mythological world where they kind of broke up. Whatever that was. There were some uneasy feelings about college, and Harvard didn't go quite the way Frasier had hoped for his son, and things like that. And I like that we've sort of come up with that storyline. That's the backstory now for this relationship, an exploring relationship that will now replace the relationship with my father. We've just bookended it.
It's really well cast. All of them seem to fit just so perfectly. You watch it. Frasier fans are not Frasier people that are just looking at it the first time, just get very comfortable looking at this, and it's so believable.
Thanks.
And that's so important, that casting, and obviously to play this over and over and over again, as you have with this character. You've done so much. I mean, I look at what you've done. By the way, I saw Jesus Revolution. I saw it a couple times.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
I was very proud of that.
Yeah, my wife wanted to see it, so I went again. It's very good. This was your recent film, Jesus Revolution, where it's a true story.
I played Chuck Smith, who was sort of the father of the Jesus Revolution, just because he opened the church to hippies.
Yeah,
that's really what he did, and to music. I mean, the whole sort of Christian music movement is pretty much at his feet, which is fascinating.
I didn't know anything about him. It was an amazing story of what went on during that time and how this was built.
Yeah, the energy of it.
Yeah,
and I go through this in my own head. It was on a night when I'd actually been up pretty much most of the night, and I was thinking, gosh, I just want to do something that has some value, that means something.
Right.
And the next day the script came. Well, I guess maybe I better do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a sign.
It was pretty great. Yeah. It was pretty great. And it was a really terrific undertaking. And I got to meet so many people with real love in their eyes. They would say, like, Pastor Chuck, he baptized me, or say, Pastor Chuck married us. It was quite a thing, and to see that connection still in their eyes, that love that they had, this sort of cherished relationship they had with a man who made a difference in their life, and I was getting to play him, and that was a very cool thing.
It's so amazing. I love the fact that you can be so associated by so many people with one character and not be held down by that you can play so many other things. Yes, I'm talking about X-Men.
Yeah.
The Beast.
He's
yes.
pretty great.
Okay. That's another great character that you've managed to play over the course of many years.
Well, now I've been in 3 of the movies, but just the cameos in 2 of them.
Yeah.
But the first one, Last Stand, that for me was just fantastic. It was just I just loved it, and it was kind of gruesome. Putting on makeup was a lot harder then. I mean, now they just do we shoot. It looks like a sort of a geodesic circle with 100 cameras on it, and they do all this motion capture stuff, and then they just put the face on you,
and that's it,
which is amazing. That's
Is that what you did in the Marvels?
Yeah, the most recent one.
The most recent one.
But I hadn't seen it, and I watched it on a plane recently, and I thought, I wonder when it's coming. Where's the damn scene? I was sort of drifting off, and then I heard my voice. And I thought, oh wow, it's unmistakably Beast's voice, which is interesting. It's not as good. It has a slightly different timbre than Fraser's voice.
Right.
And I thought, oh, that alarmed me almost. I thought, wow, that's an indelible guy. So, I mean, who knows? I hope we get to do some more.
Oh my, I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great character and it's fun. And then, of course, Sideshow Bob.
Well, yes.
You've done that over the course of many seasons.
As long as it's been. I think the first one was the first season, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the king of the long runs here.
Sam Simon was a writer on Cheers. Then he called me one day, and when he was in the middle of production on Simpsons, and said, "Are you still singing?" Now, I've always sung, and he was just sort of having a joke with me, I guess, because I used to walk into rehearsal on the set of Cheers singing, "Oh, the good life, full of fun, seems to be the ideal," and people would just they would think, "Oh, that guy, he's irrepressible." So he said, "Can you sing a Cole Porter song?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course I can. Which one?" And he said, "Every Time We Say Goodbye." I thought, yeah, I'll do that for you. And that was the foundation of Sideshow Bob. But then the next thing, when I got in and started to read the character, when I started to read the part, it was I'd logged away a character from an experience in my past. Now, I've told this story before, but it does bear repeating because he was such a one-off, this guy, Ellis Rabb.
Oh, yes.
Ellis Rabb, fantastic actor. I was painting his apartment and working on a new sort of, they did a APA Theater 2.0 that didn't ever really go anywhere, but I was working on the office space for a while. And so I got to know Ellis, and the way he spoke was pretty remarkable. And so I would just sort of drink it in. He'd come in late in the afternoon while I was still working, and he'd say, "Oh, Kelsey, wouldn't you like to sit and have a drink with me?" I thought, sure I would. Yeah, I'd love to. Why not? So I'm just about done here. Let me close up the paint cans and clean my brushes, and I'll sit down and have a martini with you. And so we'd have a martini. And he had been married to Rosemary Harris years before. And I mean, he was, beyond any working definition of gay, but he had this wonderful relationship with Rosemary as well. It was that generation. And they had split up. She had gone on to marry a senator, I think, from Washington, and had a child. So during the time I was working with him, she had just had this child. And the quotation is, "Oh, Kelsey, That baby should have been mine. And that's Sideshow Bob.
Bingo. You got a character. I wonder if you not met him or run into him.
Who knows if it would ever have happened? Yeah, I know. Because
what-
he casts a long shadow through the universe, Sideshow Bob does, and that's because of Ellis Rabb.
That is wild. And you continue to play him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just did one.
The Simpsons is going to run longer than any
Most
show
successful show in history.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's unbelievable. And they never run out of stories.
Well, you know what? They've succeeded in doing something extraordinary. They take contemporary culture and sort of throw it around without any real respect for it,
Right.
so that you recognize it, but it's timeless. The way they do it is timeless. We on our show on Frasier we eschewed contemporary culture because we didn't want to pigeonhole the timing, or the time of, whatever that time that was in our society, so that it would remain funny.
Yeah.
But in the Sideshow Bob, I mean, in the Simpsons, it seems to work somehow.
Yeah, that they can do that and get away with it. Yeah. It's true about what you just said about Frasier, though. Frasier is timeless. There were sitcoms around the same time that were great. Murphy Brown.
Right, but in that Murphy Brown, for instance,
Yeah.
the Dan Quayle run was like, we're going to go with that in 20 years.
I know.
Who cares about it?
Who knows who Dan Quayle is now?
Exactly, yeah.
And so that the joke doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah, the relationships are what matter.
Maybe that's why there's no box set out on Murphy Brown. There certainly is
Maybe.
Frasier because I own it,
Oh,
but
thank
now
you.
I'm going to have to start collecting all over again
There
because
you
you got
We got a whole bunch of new shows, yeah.
Yeah, how much longer would you see yourself playing this, or would you like?
Well,
to?
I've got at least. It's a little harder with the 10-show season format right now.
Right.
We need to kind of pick up a few more if we can, because
Yeah.
I'd like to do another 100 at least.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
that's going to be 10 more years. And I mean, I certainly could do it.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if people will want to. So I'd like to pound out a few more episodes. I'd like to get to 100.
Yeah, well,
So
they're
we got
watching
another.
it.
Yeah.
It's holding-
They are watching it, and listen, it'll hold their attention. And
Yeah.
we've got these magnificent actors on the show that will sustain the interest of the audience, I think, and I certainly think Frasier will too, because he's growing up. He's still growing up. He always has been.
Yeah.
He's a man looking for love. He's still looking for love.
He's still doing it, and it's fun to see people pop in like Perry Gilpin and things too. There's that. But I think it's taken on its own life that you don't really need the nostalgia. You can go with this guy.
Right. Yeah. It's nice to kind of touch the past a little, to sort of honor it.
Yeah.
And but his new thrust is what's really interesting, and where he's going now. This episode, this new exploration of being a teacher, of being a professor, finally, of doing something that he thinks is giving back, which is great, because he grew tired of his successful television, his syndicated successful
Well, he's
television
filthy
show.
rich now,
He's
yeah.
filthy rich because of that. He grew tired of it, thinking, well, am I serving mankind like I'm supposed to? And of course, in that way, we're sort of twinned. I mean, I like doing the world some good, and that's Frasier's chief occupation, I think. And he's trying to, while he also lives well.
Right, I know. It's fun for me going on Paramount Plus because they tell you what you've watched and what you watch there, and then they have older shows, reruns and things of stuff. So it says like Frasier, new Frasier, right next to The Love Boat, like episode 3. I don't know. I turned it on.
I did not ever do a Love Boat.
You never did?
It always sort of hurt my feelings I wasn't invited.
You weren't invited?
I wasn't invited.
Oh my God, I'm stunned.
But my take on Love Boat was that you can watch everyone in Hollywood get to first base.
That's true.
On the Love Boat.
That's true. I have to ask you, when you started, I mean, really, your Broadway debut is Macbeth. Then the next year you're doing Othello on Broadway. This is mind-tripping, in my opinion.
Yeah, Shakespeare was my thing, and it was. I was blessed to be able to play it. I mean, I got to do a few Shakespeare's. My first job was the Shakespeare Festival in San Diego.
Right.
And
Old Globe.
Yeah, the Old Globe Festival, and I did 3 years there, 3 seasons there. Oddly enough, it was in Ellis Rabb's office that the casting director for the Shakespeare Festival came in and saw me standing on a ladder working on a drop ceiling, and he looked up and said, "Are you an actor?" I have no idea what he saw that I would make him ask that question, but I said yes.
My God, thank God for Ellis Rabb.
I'll tell you what. I mean, it's a big relationship. That was Joel Martin, and he said, "Well, why don't you audition for the Shakespeare Festival tomorrow?" I said, "I'm there, no problem." I went in, did my set pieces, and they said, "We'd like to invite you out." And I called my grandmother. I said, "Gam, guess what?" And she said, "You got an acting job," because it had been a big issue with us.
Oh.
And She said, "Thank God." And I said, "I need $69." Because at that time we had a thing called Eastern, I think it was, had the Yellowbird. It was a flight from LaGuardia to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Yeah. And so it was $69 to get to Fort Lauderdale so I could pick up my motorcycle, get on it, and get to San Diego. Because they said to me, "We will not be paying for your transportation out there."
Oh my God.
So I had about $100 in my pocket. My grandmother gave me the 69. I made it to San Diego 5 days later.
On your motorcycle?
On my motorcycle.
And this career
was a great trend. That's where it all started. Yeah.
Was born. That's amazing. Yeah. You love the stage.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell because you keep going back to it and doing stuff.
I did a movie with Charlie Durning a long time ago, a Christmas movie, and he had just finished doing a play. And I said, "Charlie, what do you think? How often should you do a play?" He says, "Well, I do one every year. I do it every year. I go off and I do a play somewhere in the provinces, and it's about 3 months out of his year." But I thought, well, I don't know if I can afford to do a play every year because it's kind of like donating your time.
Right.
And if I had gotten to the place where I had a pretty big overhead, and I couldn't really afford to do it. So every 3 years, I said to him, maybe 3 years I'll do a play. So I've kind of stuck with it.
And do it, yeah. Like I was telling you before we started, I saw you on stage here at the Amundsen in L.A. Doing Sweeney Todd when that came. That was a big deal because it had not played here.
Right. And it was really fun to do.
Yeah, and it was great.
What a great part.
You love doing musicals. You got nominated for a Tony for La Cage aux Folles.
Yep. Didn't win.
Well, that's
okay. Well,
you've won a few awards.
Yeah, I've won a few.
Check your mantle.
Hardware. We like to.
Well, that was great, though. La Cage aux Folles to Jerry Herman.
Yeah, we won Best Musical that year.
That
was great. And Jerry was terrific. Opening night, he just gave me a big kiss on the cheek, and he said, "This is exactly what I always wanted it to be." That was wonderful.
Do people know that it's you singing Tossed Salad and Scrambled Eggs?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, because that's one thing that didn't change. That's still...
Right. We just did a jazzier version.
Oh, yeah.
I aged it up a little.
But
mellowed it out a little bit.
It was important to keep that. That's
absolutely
such a signature. And that last bit in every show is like, it's almost like...
it's a little cherry on top.
Great silent movie.
Right.
Just before we go, I really like this show, The Boss.
Oh, thanks.
That was a really good show.
It's my favorite character.
It is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he was rich, as
raw,
they say.
Rich, and and complex, and diabolical, but also really caring. It was a very, very wonderful character to get to play. And what we had devised for him, had we gone on and done, the full scope of the seasons we had imagined, was really quite breathtaking. It was really something. And his love for the city of Chicago was what really defined him. That was something I don't think anybody's ever seen on television. And I really
Was he inspired by Daly or anything like that?
No, but they were all afraid of it. I had dinner with Daly and I had dinner with Rahm Emanuel.
Oh, yeah.
Just so happened they wanted to have dinner and find out what we were going to be doing. I said, "You guys are safe. It's fine." We look on this place as Chicago at the time. We thought of it as a mini fiefdom, just its own little kingdom. And of course, it's got a king.
Yeah.
And so you guys can arguably say you set the mold for that, but this is a little different. You're going to be okay.
I wish you would bring that back too, so we could see.
I'd love to finish it up, but we have a great ending for it. It's quite marvelous. In the end, you will love the monster if we get the chance.
That would be amazing. It's kind of like All the King's Men a little bit.
Yeah.
And all of that. Amazing. Kelsey Grammer, thank you so much for doing the action.
Thanks, man. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.